What's up, my guys? What's up, my girls? Welcome back to the Dani Flo Podcast. I'm your boy, Dani Flo. This is the Dani Flo Podcast where I share my philosophy of life. I don't try to answer the question, what is life? Many bunch of group of dudes have been trying to figure that out for a long time, but I just share with you what gives meaning and purpose and value to my life. One of those things is philosophy. I'm a philosophy major. I attend university part-time. I'm here with a friend that I've known for about 10 years, and his name is Ryan Hayes. We're going to talk about agnosticism. That's one of the things that we discuss in philosophy because philosophy takes on the big questions like whether or not God exists. Ryan, thank you so much for being with me, and welcome. Why don't you
Thank
tell
you
us,
for having me.
of course, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just pretend I don't know you. So what would you want me to know about you?
Well, I don't want you to know how old I am, so I'll start. I'll start with that. I'm I'm over 50. We'll just say that, and so I've been on the earth for about almost over 50 years, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I was born in Stuttgart, Germany. Was on a military base, an American military base. Was only, I think, there 6 months. I don't remember, but that's what I was told. So there 6 months, came to the States, lived in places like Greeley, Colorado, and Roscoe, Illinois, and now I'm here in Rockford, Illinois, and been in Chicago. I lived there for a while. I lived in New York for a very short time, New York City. Tried to be a musician those days, and then I decided after I helped bring new people into the world that I was going to be a father, a good father to them. So I settled down around this area here in Rockford.
Okay, so that's interesting that you bring up fatherhood because that's another thing that's important to me. We'll have to discuss that maybe another time. I really want to get into the agnosticism. So I guess my first question to you would be, what kind of question do you think um, does God exist is? Is it a philosophical question or is it a scientific question?
So the question is, does God exist? Is that the question?
That's the question. So there's the question, right? Do you think it's safe to assume that everyone wrestles with that question at some point in their life,
No, I think
or
it's, I would think so.
do you think we should be more conservative and say most people will wrestle with that question at some point in their life?
I think most people that I know have at one
Hmm.
point or another. I certainly have, and people that I know have.
Hmm.
And it's not something we always talk about, but it's I would gamble that most people do struggle with this dilemma.
Okay, so when they look at the question, what kind of question do you think most people look at as? Do you think that they see it as a philosophical question? It's something that we can answer with philosophy, or is it more of a scientific question? I don't have the source, but I know that there was some astronaut that when he was in space, um, he said, "Well, I've made it all the way up here, and there is no God. I don't see him up here." Something like that. So in my mind, that person is looking at the question as a scientific one. There's the natural world. There's land, sea, air, space. We've looked all through the land. We've looked under the sea. We've looked in the air. We've made it all the way up here to space. No God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you should to quote an astronaut that said that. I've heard of astronauts that actually go quite the opposite direction.
Hmm.
Perhaps in Apollo, I want to say Apollo 8. I think it was Apollo 8, and they they orbited the Earth. Had to go on the dark side. I'm sorry, the Moon. They had to go on the dark side of the Moon, and when they emerged on the other side, they saw the rise of the Earth. And the astronaut was so inspired, he started to quote Genesis, the opening of Genesis.
It's pretty
God
cool.
created the heavens and the earth, and he went on and on. He went through that
Hmm.
whole thing. So I've seen astronauts inspired by space travel and it being actually more evidence to them that there is a God. And it's interesting that you bring up that, because to them, he was so awestruck with beauty.
Yeah.
I guess it became a philosophical question at that point.
So what do you think it is?
I think you can answer it with a philosophical question. I don't know if you get the right answer.
No? Why is that?
Well, philosophy doesn't necessarily have to apply science. And you could get a satisfying answer with philosophy, but you won't necessarily get a finite answer with philosophy.
Okay. Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I like that opinion, and I like it because it makes me think of another question. So in conversations that we've had on our personal time, this is also our personal time, but we've both have agreed that science is tentative.
Yeah, it's evolving. It evolves.
Yeah. So
if that's what you're getting at.
So even if it's
the method doesn't evolve, but the discovery
right.
and knowledge of facts does.
Well, okay, but the method of science, how did we discover the method of science? Was it through science or was it through philosophy?
I think, well, I don't know the answer to that. And as I said in my intro, I didn't really go into any of my college training or anything like that. I went to Columbia College to go to art school, and then I went to Rock Valley College here. I did take a philosophy class somewhere in there and a psychology class. So, and I studied a lot of this. I studied a lot of this stuff just on my own. And I, of course, studied theology for many years, freelance, because, well, I was a Christian. I think we'll get to that later. But back to your question, please refresh me. I just wanted to...
Yeah, so the method of... Yeah, we both agree that science is tentative. The reason that I bring it up is because you stated that you could look at the question of whether there's a God as a philosophical one, but a philosophical answer won't give you a finite answer. And I bring up that science is tentative, and then you said the method is not tentative. And so then my question is, well, how did we come
up with the method?
Isn't there...
I don't know the answer.
Me neither. Me neither. So
I have a theory, but I don't know.
Okay, why don't you share your theory with me?
My theory is a bunch of dudes got together.
Okay.
A bunch of dudes got together and they started thinking about this stuff, and they got all on the same page. And they said, let's try it this way. Let's try this method to come up with, a hypothesis or whatever. I'm not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination.
Neither am I. We're just two dudes trying to figure it out.
We're just a couple of dudes, right?
Just a couple of dudes trying to figure it out.
Maybe we'll figure out the existence of God in this conversation. We don't know that right now.
That's right.
It could happen.
It could.
Stay tuned, everyone. So yeah, I'm thinking a bunch of dudes got together and came up with it.
Okay, but when they were coming up with it, what were they using?
What were they using?
Weren't they philosophizing? Weren't they using philosophy?
They were using logic.
That logic is
philosophy, perhaps. Yeah, because they're trying to prove something, right? So they have to do experiments to do that. So in order to even come to the conclusion of to do experiments, you had to come to you were trying to answer some philosophical question, which I think is your point.
I think so. Well, yeah, I think they were trying to, I think most people that are philosophy enthusiasts and they go down this rabbit hole, they'll agree that philosophy is needed to get science, like philosophy is needed to define what science is.
I think so. Yeah, to get your head around it.
Yeah, you need to give it a definition, and you can't use science to define what science is.
Right, you need more of a macro outside looking in.
That's right.
Because otherwise.
That's right. So from from my perspective, the question, does God exist, is a philosophical one.
Yeah, and I grant you that.
There we go. Okay, so you told us a little bit about yourself. So how did you come to the realization that you were an agnostic? Because there's other avenues, right? There's other. I've not chosen, for lack of better terminology, the avenue that you have chosen. How did you I guess, for lack of better terminology, choose or conclude, hey, I'm an agnostic? That seems to be the best answer to the question, does God exist?
I think I was struggling with my agnosticism, have you, which I don't know if it's much of a philosophy as it is more of a method of just thinking, if there's a difference between the two. But I struggled with it. The origin of agnosticism, I think, started at an early age, but when I accidentally embraced it was after my divorce. Mm-hmm. Is when I realized that's who I was, and I felt comfortable in my own skin saying it out loud instead of saying I was a Christian. I never felt comfortable. I can't say never, but usually I didn't feel quite comfortable saying that. I didn't know if I believed it enough. I always felt like I was never good enough as a Christian. And it seemed like all the Christians that I was around, it was always a process of, you're not good enough, and you have to get better. I felt like no matter what I did, I could get better. And of course they would, tell me we all fall short and all that. But I would say it was after the divorce. I had the realization, for some reason, it freed my mind. The origin, the very core origin, I can trace back to a very young age, perhaps maybe, 10 or so. And it pretty much started with the discovery that Santa Claus was not real. That was a letdown for me.
Why are you smirking?
I'm just thinking about it. Santa Claus. Okay. If you don't mind, if I elaborate on that.
Sure. Go ahead.
I established a pretty deep trust with my parents. They had established that through a series of, saying things like, don't touch that electrical outlet. It'll shock you. It'll hurt you. Don't touch it. And so when I did touch it with my tongue, I don't know why I chose my tongue to touch it with, but I did. And it gave me a terrible shock. And it turned out my mom was right. She was trying to protect me. She was right. Don't eat that plaster. It'll make you sick. Sure enough, it made me sick. So I started to I trusted her. I did. I trust her. She told me Jesus loves me. She told me Santa Claus is coming to town. And when she told me the day, I mean, I had so much belief in Santa Claus that it actually took her, hey, well, I have to tell you, Santa Claus isn't real. And I was like shocked, What do you mean he's not real? I mean, what is all this? And it's like, she's like, do you really think reindeer can fly? I'm like, I don't know. I'm 10. And so I think eventually I got around to wondering, well, if the Santa Claus thing isn't real, and this is just a story that you and Dad, not just you and Dad made up, but this is like being perpetuated across the masses. This is like a lie that we're telling all of our kids. That's just a way I put it. I know that people have different feelings about this, so I don't mean to offend anybody. But this is bigger than my mother and father. And so eventually the question had to be, okay, well, if Santa Claus isn't real, what about Jesus? What about God? Oh, yeah, they're real. So, somehow I kept my faith from that point as much as I could, but that was like the beginning of the deterioration for me.
That was the beginning of the doubt.
The beginning of the doubt, the discovery of being deceived. Did
you know what? So this was around the time that you were 10. Did you know what trust was when you were 10?
I really I didn't
As
have
far as you can remember, of course, our memory is faulty. As far as you can remember, did you have a concept of trust?
I think I had a concept of it. I don't think I had a total understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was trusting, but I didn't say from an outward philosophical perspective, I am trusting you
Mm-hmm.
because you've established trust.
Right. Yeah, because I guess if you were maybe if you were 20, and of course the analogy breaks down because by the time that you're 20, hopefully, whether your parents tell you that Santa Claus exists or not, hopefully you figured it out by then. But if you were 20 and your parents or anybody revealed to you that something wasn't true that you believed to be true, it seems to me that you wouldn't doubt any particular belief. You would just cease trusting them and maybe trusting in people in general because that person or those people broke your trust. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think life is kind of like a deterioration of trust, and you become to realize, well, we're all human, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is what humans do. Sometimes we don't mean to.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't always get it right. And so you begin to learn that as you go through life, and you just learn that there's all these untruths out there that maybe you think something that's true, well, it isn't. For instance, I was taught when you get a nosebleed, you're supposed to tilt your head back. And I guess that's exactly the wrong thing
Mm-hmm.
to do. And I was taught to tilt my head back by my mom, who had the wrong information. After her nurse training, she realized that wasn't right anymore.
She corrected that one.
She corrected it,
There
but
you go.
it's just like she didn't outright lie to me. She just had bad information, right?
Okay.
So it's like there's, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So then you mentioned that when you became a father and you decided to be a good father and you decided to stay in Rockford. So what did you teach your children about Santa and Jesus, if you don't mind me asking?
I never told them Santa was real, and I did tell them Jesus was real. At the time, I believed.
Oh, okay.
Well, I actually, to this day, believe Jesus was quite possibly real. But I would, tell them, well, he's still alive. He's the Son of God and all of that. I kind of gave it to them piecemeal, not like I didn't lay all that on them, but
Mm-hmm.
we prayed. We would pray with our kids every night.
So
what
do you think? Let's take the opposite. So let's say just one of your children. Let's say you raised them and you raised them to, let's just stick with Jesus. So let's say you raised them to uh believe that not that he wasn't a historical figure, but that he wasn't God. You broke it down to them piecemeal as they got older. Listen, there's this historical figure, Jesus. A lot of people think that he was God, but he's not. That's not true. And then let's say, I don't know, when they turned 10, somehow they received some information that from, I don't know, the internet or another person, that Jesus is in fact God. Do you think that they would question everything or most things that you taught them if it was the opposite?
Yeah, and they should. They should question, even if it comes from me, because I don't always get it right. And just for the record, I never have told them, "Hey, Jesus and God aren't real." I've never
Mm-hmm.
told them that he's not the Son of God. I've never said that. I don't know that with 100% certainty, but
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, are they as because I consider you a deep thinker just from the conversations that we've had over the years. Did your children come out deep thinkers like you?
well, thank you for saying I'm a deep thinker. I think Are they deep thinkers like me? I think they are fairly. They're analytical.
Yeah.
They use their brains.
Hmm.
I've taught them, don't be led by your emotions. From how do you know, Dad? Well, just from my experience, it does. You make some bad decisions with your emotions, and I think that's carried some weight. But they are, they're analytical. I don't know if they're deep thinkers. I don't. Yeah, I guess I've been called a deep thinker before, so I guess I'll take that. I don't know if they are quite as deep as I am. I don't know.
All right. So from my perspective, um, agnosticism, we've yet to define it. So agnosticism is just a it answers the question of whether does God exist as I don't know. So it neither affirms nor negates. It's it's withholding saying yes or no.
Yeah, and you can look at it as a cop out or as
Some people do. Some
yeah,
people
I
do.
think some people do.
But
Not everybody does.
I want to break it down even further because we have the time. So a person is asked, does God exist? They say no. That's the definition of an agnosticism. But I think it's deeper than that because there's I think we have to, you've mentioned the fact that we're human. I think we have to take into account the will because some people answer the question, I don't know if God exists, but I want to know. So they're kind of willing to take in information and they're willing to maybe change their mind. So that's kind of like an open agnosticism. And then there's the I think there's the agnosticism that says I don't know and I don't really care to find out. So it's kind of like a closed agnosticism, like, look, I don't know and I've spent enough time on this, um or for some reason they're not willing to take in any more information.
Wouldn't
They're
you call that straight up atheism?
No, because they're not negating it. They're just saying I don't want to know. I don't know,
Oh,
and I don't want to know. You can
hmm.
go ahead and keep wrestling with that question, or you can go ahead and keep researching, or you can go ahead and keep gathering more information. But I'm done. I don't know, and I don't want to know. And then I think there's an even deeper one that's I don't know, and no one can know. It's almost like a dogmatic agnosticism. Like, even if you spend more time on this, even if you gather more information, uh, even if you talk to the smartest people in the world who have spent a lot of time on this question, you still can't know whether there is. So I don't really have a better term for that. So yeah, so I think there's an open agnosticism. They don't know, but maybe they're not actively trying to seek out more information. But if the information presents itself, they're maybe willing to change their minds. Like, oh, that kind of maybe convinces me that there is a God, or oh, that actually convinces me that there's not. And then there's the one that's closed, like I don't know and I don't want to know. And then there's the one that's a little bit more definitive. There's I don't know and no one can know. Doesn't matter how, what you Google, doesn't matter what you read, you're not going to get to the answers. Where do you think you are out of those three?
Oh, definitely the first one.
The first one?
Yeah, I think you're a hopeless case if you're 2 or 3. 3 is like you don't even have any faith in science. You don't care what science has to say. It's a done deal. It's you're taking the question, you're answering it philosophically completely, and your philosophy is nobody can possibly know. Nobody can get that information, which basically includes there is no God because you can't get that information. Or if there was a God, he won't give the information. How can you make that conclusion? And the second one, you're just basically just shutting yourself off from any new information. You're not willing to learn from life anymore. So I think definitely the first one, I'm an agnostic. I'm still gathering data. I may have stepped away from the Christian faith, but it doesn't mean I can't look at it. It's right there. It's still a part of me. Some of the things I learned from that are still a part of me, but I'm still gathering information. If if I go and get a drink out of my refrigerator and God happens to be in my refrigerator, well, I'm going to change my mind. Mm-hmm. So, the other two can't. So they wouldn't know God if he hit them in the face. That's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So then, is it safe to say that you went from a form of Christianity to agnostic? That was kind of the process?
You could, I would put it, I lost my faith.
Okay, that's how you put it. So, I mean, why not maybe, so how come you didn't go like from a Christian to a Jew, or from a Christian to a Muslim, or maybe one of the Eastern faiths? I mean, why such a, because if we want to get a little more nerdy about it, I guess, there's atheism, and then there's agnosticism, and then there's different kinds of theisms. You've got polytheism, and a lot of the polytheists are part of the Eastern faiths, Buddhism, Hinduism, and then you've got monotheists, which are the Christians, the Jewish faith, the Muslims, and sometimes you have non-religious theists, which would be your deist. They believe in a divine watchmaker that kind of made the earth and then said, "Oh, that's cool, but I'm going to move on to better things," and then just kind of let the earth do its own thing. So it seems that you kind of not just had, but have a lot of options. Why do you think that agnosticism is the best one out of all of those, with the information that you've gathered?
Yeah, without a doubt, agnosticism fits me the best. I was entertaining learning about other religions for many years. I learned a little bit about Hinduism. I had a roommate who was a Hindu in New York City. We named our pad Zen Vishnu Mandira, which I guess I forgot what it meant, but the meaning didn't strike me as anything to come against, and I was fine with all that. So he would embellish on a lot of his his belief systems. He was a guy who was raised Catholic, left the Catholic religion to become a Jehovah's Witness, and then left the Jehovah's Witness to become a follower of Prabhupada, I think his name was. But wow, I was mystified by that. And so I learned a lot through friends. Buddhism was always big. A lot of my friends talked about Buddhism, Taoism a little bit. And there's a lot of, it's almost like you're shopping, you pick one that fits you the best. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to just settle for something else that seemed fashionable or seemed to suit me. If it's the truth I'm looking for, I want to find it and then wrap my mind around it. So I'm more comfortable with agnosticism because I didn't know, well, if I'm going to just reject Christianity, why would I automatically glom on to believing another deity, which from a universalist standpoint could very well be the same deity I rejected in the first place, just worshipped in a different way. Universalism was another concept that became very familiar with in New York City, where it kind of just pulls all of the religions together into one, that you're worshiping the same deity. It's just that all these different cultures worship it a different way. The one problem I had with that is Christianity, if you go deep into the doctrine, rejects that notion.
Yeah, that's true.
Through the teachings of Christ, he says, "I am the way, the truth, and the light." So
not one way, and Hinduism is cool too.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. He was not. He wasn't vague, and I think it says that if I'm not mistaken, more than once.
Yes.
In the New Testament. So, so it's, I kind of had to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think, not necessarily, that was maybe not the best phrase to use, but I had to, reject it all. Not totally reject it, but not let it be my guiding principle.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't want to accept another religion just because you couldn't find the truthfulness in the one that you left.
Yeah, I didn't know this one was true, and I didn't know what would make something else more true than this one.
Yeah,
so I have
sense.
to take the same agnostic viewpoint with these other religions as I do with the one that I just stepped away from.
Okay.
That's from my standpoint.
All right, so let's kind of take the analogy that you started to articulate. You said it's kind of like you're shopping for which one fits you best, and you didn't really want to shop. You wanted to find the truth, which is a great thing. But let's say somebody is like you, and they're trying to find the truth, and they have all these options in front of them, right? They've got Catholicism, they've got Protestantism, they've got Judaism, they've got Islam, they've got Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, they've got just deism, and then they've got agnosticism and atheism, right? And everyone gets to make their best case. What do you think is the best case? Everyone gets to be heard. Everyone gets to present their best argument or reasons why that philosophy, why that ideology is the truth or more true than the other ones. If they wanted to make a more modest claim, like, we don't know if we're absolutely true, but we're definitely more true than the rest of these guys. What do you think would be the best argument for agnosticism?
Well, it's the only faith you don't have to have faith in.
Okay. Elaborate on that.
People have asked me, well, if you rejected Christianity, why haven't you embraced atheism? I don't, as I've said to you before, I don't feel like I have enough faith to be an atheist. You need to have faith that God does not exist. You've come to that conclusion. You're probably an evolutionist, which is something I think worthy of a little bit more faith than, just straight up rejection of the existence of God. So agnosticism is most comfortable to me, and I don't know if I'm just picking the best one I could find, but it was the only one I could do with not having any faith in not only all the other religions, but kind of itself. I mean, the credo of agnosticism is, I don't know. If you had an agnostic church, that would be part of your chant. We cannot come to the conclusion because we don't have enough data. Therefore, I do not know. Something like that. And since I do not know, and as I said before, the way that the beginning of my agnosticism was the beginning of my loss of faith. And it wasn't just in God, it was in people, it was in institutions, it was in all kinds of things. I lost faith in just about everything after the divorce. And well, it was actually during the divorce. It was after I left my first wife, but it wasn't a declaration. It was more of a realization. And
okay, that's interesting. So you think, I'm not sure if you realize this, I think what you said is, I think, considered controversial in philosophy, especially with people
I may not realize that.
Huh?
Go ahead.
So because I think, well, in philosophy and science, because I think somebody that maybe is I think somebody that is an atheist would find it controversial that you said it takes faith to be an atheist, because they would say, um, no, it's because I don't have faith that I'm an atheist. So
I would,
why does it take faith to be an atheist as opposed to knowledge? They'll say, no, they would say, I know that there isn't a
you can
God.
prove that God does not exist. I would challenge that. I would say, prove it to me. Prove to me that God doesn't exist. Maybe I'll jump into your camp. I don't think the proof is there.
What if they say, this is cool because now I'm trying to make I'm trying to make the best case for atheism not being an atheist. So okay, so it doesn't take faith to be an atheist because um, we don't need God to explain the existence of the world and the universe. Traditionally, before the scientific revolution, we used God to explain the origin of the universe, example Genesis. But after the scientific revolution and after the Big Bang Theory, we know that all of all of time, space, energy, and matter were created with a rapid expansion, and we have no evidence to suggest God made that rapid expansion. And so, since it isn't necessary to attribute that to God, therefore God doesn't exist. How do you feel about that?
I would say even even some of the most brilliant scientists out there have entertained what they call intelligent design.
Hmm.
Just because you reject the origin story of matter and the earth and the sun and whatnot, or the origin of species, as it is portrayed in the Bible, if you reject all that, you're having faith. You're drawing the conclusion that this is not done by an intelligent mind, intelligent design. You're drawing that conclusion based on what? I think you have to have, if you have to make a leap of faith to say, well, just say, well, it couldn't have been some dude that did all this. It just couldn't have been. It's not a good enough answer for me.
Okay,
So,
let me keep playing. Let me keep trying to make my best case for atheism, even though I'm not an atheist. So, okay,
I know you're not.
you don't need God to explain the origin of the universe, but you think that there seems to be some sort of design included in nature, but aren't you just switching the word God with intelligent designer? Aren't you just doing a bait and switch?
Well, I'm not really. I'm saying God could be real, but not in the traditional sense.
Okay.
Atheists aren't willing to make that uh, make that argument. They rule out that possibility. And you could call it a bait and switch, but I'm not evangelizing. So it's like something of intelligence. There's reason to believe, because all of this works so well, our ecosystem,
Hmm.
nature, it all
Hmm.
seems to work relatively well, which is a testament that
Suspicious.
yes, humans did not make this, right?
Uh-huh.
It works rather well. So to just say this is all a big accident,
Hmm.
I say that's possible. I don't know if it was an accident or not. It just
So,
seems too perfect to just throw out the notion that some intelligent being didn't create this or did create.
so what you're saying is, uh, what you're saying is, it's possible that our universe and our experience of nature was an accident, but the difference between that possibility and definitively saying this was an accident, you're saying that that gap is a leap of faith.
I think you summed that up well. Yeah. It could have been an accident, but to be an atheist, you have to say it was an accident. Yeah.
Okay. And so then, similarly, right? If we go the other direction, an agnostic says it could have been an accident, right? The theist, and in theist, I'm actually including a deist. A deist is someone who believes in God but doesn't worship God because he doesn't think God revealed a religion to worship him in, right? So the difference between an agnostic using this line of reasoning that we're using and a theist is an agnostic says this could have been an accident, but a theist says, no, it wasn't an accident. And so you have in your mind and in your opinion and with the information that you've gathered throughout your life wrestling with this question, you see it the same. If you say it was an accident, you're taking a leap of faith because you have limited information. And if you say, no, it wasn't an accident, you also have limited information. So you're also taking a leap of faith.
Exactly.
I would assert that is a controversial stance because
I've read that like only 9-10% of the population are agnostic. With a lot of people have locked into something.
That's an interesting stat. So how many of those agnostics do you think are like you and are willing to change their mind as more information is presented? Just a speculative answer. You don't have to have.
Most agnostics that aren't like me are probably they're atheists. The atheists that I know still have open minds, but really not so much with the philosophical question, does God exist? They pretty much made up their minds, which is fine. They can do that. I just haven't. I think I just don't have the faith to be an atheist. Otherwise, I probably would be. But like for the arguments I've said before, I can't be. So
let's stick with the difference between agnosticism and atheism real quick. Okay. What do you think it would take for you to move? Let's start small. What do you think it would take for you to move a little bit in the direction of this was an accident as opposed to it might have been an accident? So right now you're like, maybe this is an accident. You're an agnostic. What do you think would move you a little bit in the direction of this was an accident? What information or what evidence would you need to move you a little bit?
I think if we like uncovered a plot that that there was that we this is not something we're probably going to find, but if we like got historical knowledge that there was a conspiracy to create a religion or two, that they got together and said, we need a way to control the masses. We need them to have something to believe in. And we have like historical records, like there's a bunch of dudes that got together and said, oh my gosh, look what they're up to. It's just a big lie, you know. And I think if we found something like that, maybe if we found something in the strata, something weird, some strange archaeological find that I can't even imagine right now might move me into that direction. But
okay,
we have dinosaurs sitting there, and there's no account of them in the historical documents, you know. So
that's an interesting answer. So, but couldn't you then be skeptical of the newly discovered documents? Like if we found these documents that said, so now I'm making the case for you to stick to your agnosticism. So if we found let's say we find these documents, right?
Hmm.
Um, somewhere, someplace. The point is we discover them. Maybe we can do some sort of carbon dating and find out from what year and what
Like the
century.
Dead Sea Scrolls, they
Yeah, yeah,
don't
we
have
could.
to be that old.
Yeah, but how? I mean, how? What would we need to do to prove that they're legit? Why couldn't we be like, oh, this is garbage. Like this was created in a lab somewhere to undermine the legitimacy of, religious institution X. Um, so, we can dismiss this as just another attempt to, um, attack us,
Yeah,
attack religion.
if you came to that conclusion that you just cited through a scientific method, I would probably have more faith in that. I would also be skeptical that that itself would be propaganda propagated by not that. Okay, this finding does not prop up our belief system, so we have to tell everybody this is just a big lie. So
Hmm.
I would be just as skeptical as the documents themselves as I would with the rhetoric that would follow. So, um, yeah, it would just be something to look into. If you found these
Hmm.
documents, they need to be looked into. The authenticity, where they are planted, and yes, carbon dating would be a big part of that.
Or do you think that it would take? Do you think the number of documents found would be impressive? Like, let's say you found two documents that said religious institution X was started by a group of dudes that wanted to control the masses, and we actually have quotes from them, whatever.
Mhm.
As but do you think you'd be like, that's kind of okay, let's carbon date them, let's look into it, with a fine tooth comb, see how legit they are. What if you found 20 or 200 or 2000? As the number increases, does that give you more of a reason to say this was all a conspiracy to control the masses? And I guess
If
this
I
is,
was if I was convinced that the documents were authentic, it would move me towards atheism a bit
but
more. That was the
do you think the number, like, do you think it would take a certain number of documents, or just two is good enough
two would be good enough
if
to
they were
move me.
authentic?
I don't think it would make it would. I don't think it would change my religion of agnosticism, but it would tick me
Uh,
over towards that direction. The
I
more
mean,
documents, the more information you get, the more revealing it becomes, and yes, that might tick more.
well, you could have like 20,000 documents that say, religious institution X is all a hoax, but what if they're all fake?
Right, but I think the point that I could make here is, if they're as old as the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we've determined that these
You've got
over
like,
yeah, these documents here that say that religion is just a big hoax on everybody, they're fake. These ones over here, no, these are authentic.
hmm
So aren't just a bunch of dudes, deciding which one's good and which one's bad.
they're trying to decide for us.
Yeah, they're trying to decide for us.
Yeah,
So it's an interesting question, and it's all hypothetical.
that's right. So let's do the hypothetical and the opposite. So, um, we've kind of, in our own language, have defined agnosticism as, you say, I don't know if God exists. Um, I don't know if he created the universe. This could have all been an accident. And atheism says this was an accident. But a theist, someone that believes in God, says, no, this wasn't an accident. So, what evidence or information or argument would move you a little bit in that direction? Like,
In the
what,
theist direction,
in the theist direction, for you to say, "Oh no, this wasn't an accident." You've already mentioned. I think. I think actually, if we keep using our own language, I think between agnostic and theist, I think if you start entertaining a little bit of intelligent design, you're already somewhere in between agnosticism and, because your atheist isn't going to entertain intelligent design, they might accuse you of the bait and switch. Oh, now you're just calling God something else. Now you're
yeah,
just.
Point taken. What would move me in that direction is physical evidence.
Okay. So
Um,
what's
It's
so
just the same thing as the other one, physical evidence, right? Documents, physical
uh-huh.
evidence. Now, we do have documents of theism, and it's all these belief systems are based on documents. What we would need more of here would be, physical. For a lot of people, it's just a personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all it takes for most people, and that could be it. Just a personal experience that I believed, that I would perceive to be real. And the key to all this is I'm limited by my perceptions in the
Mm-hmm.
first place. So I have to take that into account. But if something happens that I perceive as real, or I could even say, hey, did you see that? And then that person saw it too. That gives me, okay, it wasn't a hallucination unless we were both having the same hallucination at the same time,
Which would
which is
be
highly unlikely.
super highly unlikely is
Highly
right.
unlikely, right? So I'm going to buy in to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've heard of, a lot of miracles that multiple people have seen that have converted people to Catholicism. Now, if I was to personally experience any of these things, perhaps I would move back to theism.
So right. So then it's not enough to read about the miracles that someone documented after their own personal experience. You
I
want
think
the personal experience.
I think documenting the experiences gives it a certain level of credibility,
Mm-hmm.
but I can still put it on the shelf and say, well, just because I believe it doesn't mean it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So I need more,
Yeah, I
so
could
I'm
want it
looking.
to be true.
Yeah, I could want it to be true, therefore going that direction. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to be careful there too. So I'm just trying to keep the mind open and hoping that I don't, just by saying theism, you're not suggesting a dogmatic religious belief. You're just
True.
saying a belief in a higher power, a creator. Have you?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, just someone that started the whole thing.
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily lock you into a judgment day. You would have to put all the doctrine of Christianity back on top of it. But yeah, so I didn't want to make that leap.
Okay. So let's try something. So we already said you've got a person in front of all these different ideologies, and um, I kind of asked you to make the best case for agnosticism, and you said agnosticism is the only ideology that you don't need to have any faith because you've taken in all the information and you've concluded based on the information I don't know.
Yeah, at
Does
this
that
moment, I've concluded.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you try to make the best? Let's do both of them. Try. I've already kind of tried to make the best case for atheism, or not really make the best case for atheism. I kind of tried to defend atheism against your definition of agnosticism. Why don't
God
you
bless
give?
you. Sorry.
Why don't you try to make the best case for atheism? Just to be fair, like if you had to give it the fairest representation.
Okay. I didn't prepare for this, but let's.
That's
I'm
okay.
going to lawyer for atheism now. Okay. So there's not enough evidence to believe that there's a God, and I think you got to be kind of cynical. I think to see. I'm not doing a very good job.
Okay.
So I have to be cynical. Okay. Um, I can be cynical, but I think you have to be more cynical um, to just make that conclusion, to make that leap. Okay, let's reset. It's fair. You were making arguments for atheists. I should be able to do it too, right? um, I'm on the spot here. Okay, well, I mean, if God created humans, then why did he make so much war? I mean, it's not even the best argument.
So that sounds like the problem of evil.
Well, you could, yeah, I guess so. And free will, right? Which is also theistic. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm failing on this one. I'm having a really hard time. I have atheist friends. I have great atheist friends. I should ask them. I should really get down in the weeds on this.
Down in the weeds.
Yeah, defend your faith, and they'll say, "I don't have any faith," and then I got to go through all that.
let's take a pause right there. So, I've already kind of said that just from conversations that we've had, not online, for recording purposes, that you're a deep thinker. Most people, do you know, do they care about this stuff? Do they care about the definition of atheism and what's the difference between an atheist and an agnostic, and what's the difference between an agnostic and a theist? You seem to know the details, because just earlier you were saying, so yeah, just because you assert that there's a God doesn't mean that you're religious about it. You don't, you could just be a theist and that's it. So do they care to know about this stuff? What's been your experience with that? Or do you think that we kind of just gravitate to people like that?
I don't know if I tended to gravitate towards people that were very agnostic when I was a teenager. Intellectuals, I found myself gravitated towards mostly. And most of them were just thought I was full of phooey, to put it away. Just how could you believe in that tripe? They would say that to me. How can you believe that? It's like ridiculous. We would have these discussions back then. Nowadays I don't have these philosophical discussions with them. I've kind of had them back in the day, so we don't discuss it much anymore. But they would entertain, me babbling, evangelizing, to them. They tolerated that, and they listened. A lot of them listened, and I think I probably had a hand in maybe a conversion here and there. I've had these discussions with many people. I don't have them as much as I do with you these days. I've kind of had those discussions with them, and so
let's take a pause in the pause. So do you think that in your experience, because I don't know many atheists that are kind of evangelical about it. It's kind of just like they kind of settle the question and they're like, all right, now I'm just gonna live my life. I think maybe if it comes up in conversation, they might engage it. They might say, oh, well, I'm not a believer and here's why. Or
to be an evangelical atheist is on your own volition. That's not in their documents that you have to go spread the good word.
You've seen atheist documents?
Well, I'm joking. There aren't any, right?
I don't know.
Well, okay, if you want to go with atheist documents, we'll go to Darwin, okay, who himself was not an atheist, from what I understand. He was also an agnostic. But his conclusions were very controversial.
Are you upset with the atheists for trying to take Darwin from the agnostics? Is that what's going on here?
Well, a lot of the atheists, love to just pull out Darwin at me. When I was a Christian, they would, look at the, origin of species and blah blah blah. We would go on, and I learned an awful lot from them. But what I failed to understand at the time, until I actually did my own research on Darwin, is that he himself was involved in a church the whole time he was doing this stuff. He wasn't an attendee, but he would help churches. He was involved in churches. So
This isn't some sort of like Darwin biography.
I wouldn't. I would call it historical data. Just I don't know. I don't remember where I learned that, but it could have been Wikipedia for all I know. But
yeah, but I think they have some sort of like. I think anyone can edit it, but it's reviewed by people that.
Right. So I mean, I don't know if I learned that from Wikipedia, but that's to my knowledge.
Right.
Darwin was an agnostic. He described himself as agnostic, not as a philosophy, but as a method.
Okay.
So I don't know why I got so, yeah, I did get kind of animated there, didn't I?
Against the atheist community for taking, for taking Darwin away from the agnostic community. So, okay, so I think you answered the question. So
it's not part of their, they don't evangelize because it's not.
It would be with their own volition. And then the other question was, in your experience, the people that you know that are atheists do care about these these questions, these type of questions.
Absolutely, but they I think they pick the time to discuss them. I don't think it's something you want to beat somebody over the head with, you know. If they want to be social.
What would that be called though? Like if that's called, I mean, isn't that called like you have zeal for your atheism if that's all you want to talk about?
You could put very passionate atheist,
if
a born again atheist, have you?
If I'm not sure if I would want to like talk to a big group about, I mean, just taking my life right now, taking my life the way that it is. If someone came up to me at a Starbucks, or I don't know, if someone just came up to me and said, you know, talk to me about whatever you want for the next hour or two, and I had the time, I would just talk to them about Catholicism, you know, for the you know, if they were just willing to sit there and listen or have a conversation with me. You don't think some atheists are like that?
Yeah, I'm sure there are, and I think it's okay to be like that both ways.
Okay.
Because somebody opened the door and said, "Come in." You know, it's not like you're pounding on the door. Saying,
okay. So there's a difference. So what would you call the person that's pounding on the door trying to talk about atheism?
Strange. That just doesn't happen, does it?
Has anyone ever tried to...
Neither do Catholics, right? But the Jehovah's Witnesses are pounding on your door. That's part of their philosophy.
Part of their method. Part of their method.
It is part of their method.
Yeah,
right?
I think they train to do that.
Yes.
I think some Catholics might. I mean, I don't know any personally that would literally just find any excuse to bring it up or try to find their opening, I guess.
You don't know Catholics that would do that? I know Christians, Protestants that would and live for that moment.
I'm not sure that I know that many. Well, maybe because the Protestants that I know already think that I'm a believer, so they might they might not agree with my doctrine.
Yeah, they would be an opening to like try to, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna talk to him about the rapture as soon as I get a chance. You know, it's like,
yeah, I'm not sure I've even had that experience.
It'd be a doctrine thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I wish that would happen to me actually. Like, why are Protestants trying to change my mind so that I could talk to them? Because if they're
you're opening the door, change his mind.
If they're trying to,
you're at the table. You know, it's like, you know, you could say, I don't believe in the rapture. Change my mind.
Yeah,
you would get good discussions.
But because then I could talk, because even if they're the ones trying to change my mind, I still get to talk about Catholicism
Right, because you get to make your yeah, absolutely.
Well, I would be on the defensive. They
You
would
could
put,
always turn it around.
I could try.
Yeah, you'd have
But
fun.
okay, so that's do you think more people should be concerned with these types of do you think more people should it seems to me that you want to be precise, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
want to be do you think most people care to be precise? Do you think that they care uh what the precise definition of agnosticism is, what the precise definition of atheism, theism, and because I think, I mean, this could be in the bubble that I live in, but I think when people think of theist, they think of religious theists. They don't think of people that believe in God but aren't, but don't belong to a faith, for lack of better terminology.
Right, they make
That
that jump. It's
yeah,
important.
they make that jump. It's just atheists, agnostics, and then religious people. It's not theist and then religious theist. It's, you know,
You have to be able to see the nuance in
that's right. Do you think most people care about the nuance?
I think most people want to appear that they care about the nuance, but that's just based on you just asked me what I thought. That's what I think. I don't have enough data to come to the conclusion of what people are thinking, but based on a lot of behavior that I see in humans, I don't think this is a major thing for them. This philosophy or the why we're here. It's just such a hard question or they come to terms with it at a young age. You know, I don't think I don't think enough people really think about these things. I think there's plenty of people that do, but I don't know. And that's typical agnostic, right? I don't know.
But I mean, you've been thinking about it a long time.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
You know, like you didn't want to discuss your age, so we're not. But you're older than I am. Were you thinking about this stuff when you were my age?
Absolutely. Oh,
and you're still.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I was always asking. I would study the Bible, maybe not a Strong's Concordance. You know, I thought I was going to dissect that thing, and I was going to find the truth. And I asked, an awful lot of questions, a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. Why do these two things not match up? Why this, why that? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you think that the vast majority of people maybe eventually stop thinking about it?
I really don't know. I know there's a lot of people of faith. There's a lot of people of faith. The statistics would say that 90% of the population has a faith of one or the other, and that doesn't even include the atheists, because I think you would include them.
Yeah, by the definition that we've kind of agreed with tonight,
they're people of faith.
The stats are wrong.
Yeah, I know. Because you're saying, "Oh, you're an atheist. You don't have any faith."
It's
not in God. But
it's 90. It's because I think you said that it was about 6%. Is 6% of the United States or the global population are agnostic?
I think globally, I'm
6%.
Like
94% of people, according to Ryan Hayes, has a faith, including whatever percentage of atheists
was
that
90,
is.
94? I thought it was.
Well, I mean, 100 minus the 6.
Well, if 9.6 of the population is agnostic, it would have to be 90.
Oh, okay.
So, and I lumped the atheists in people of faith. So there's probably, even if you want to take them out of there, depending on how you want to look at that question. But we've proven here tonight that atheists are people of faith, right? So
I'm kind of compelled by that reasoning.
Yeah. So
if it brings any
listening or viewing this would agree.
We'll be compelled to. We'll be compelled to. They better be, if they know it's good for. No, I'm just kidding.
So, if they have a counter argument, I would like to hear it.
A counter argument to the assertion that atheists are people of faith.
Yes.
But just in the opposite direction.
Yeah, you said that was controversial.
I think that is controversial.
Yeah, I mean,
from the
if you hear
atheist
my
perspective.
argument, you might not think so, but
I think because I think from the atheistic perspective, they think that the theists are the ones that are making a leap of faith, and they're just looking at the facts. They're just looking at the information, and the information concludes that atheism is true.
yeah, but we don't know what we don't know. So if you may not have all the information you need.
Right. So yeah, so then you come in and you blow it up, I guess, and you said we're not done gathering information. But I mean, wouldn't they say that that's just wishful thinking, that one day somewhere far off in the future we're going to gather this definitive information that will conclude whether or not there is a it's almost as if I mean, they could say it's the not the God of the gaps, but it's almost like the information of the gaps. Eventually, we will.
They might make that argument. They say it's impossible. It'll never happen. I say it might.
It might. It could. Yeah. Well, it could. It would be. But I mean, it would be. It would be subjective, right?
Yeah, and I did say that what would be the theism would be a highly subjective.
Well, the atheism
insight.
would too, right? Because
Yeah,
if
well,
it
I
might
guess
be,
so.
it might be some, like, let's say 5 years from now, we get some new information, right? And
Okay.
this information scores points for atheism, but it only scores points for atheism for you, but other people are not convinced by it. They're still waiting for, for more information.
The atheist would be going, "See, I told you so."
Right,
And
but just to you,
to me, other
yeah, they would
agnostics would go,
say
"No, I need more."
they would say we told you, Hayes, and we want Darwin back.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Darwin's ours.
You were wrong, and we want Darwin back. That's the
Good.
deal. All right. So, is there anything else that you want to say about agnosticism?
I think I think that I covered Santa Claus. I covered divorce. That's where it all happened and why and all that. And no, I think we hit it on all the points. As
Okay.
long as
Well,
you're satisfied.
I think I am satisfied, and I very much appreciate your time. What I want you to do, because I do agree with you that I think we agree. I don't think enough people think about this stuff.
I'm skeptical that people do.
I am also skeptical that's why when I asked the question, I prefaced it with it could be in my experience or in the bubble that I live in. You know, when I observe people, whenever I people watch, you know, I'm skeptical that they're walking around like me, like, does God exist? Am I in the right faith? Am I right about this? Am I right about that? So, I guess two things. What would be your advice for people like us who do think about this stuff? And then how would you encourage people that don't think about this stuff to think about this stuff?
Okay.
And we'll end on those notes.
So the first question was refresh me, please.
Yeah, the first set of advice is for people that are deep thinkers like us, that are philosophical, whether they like it or not. I mean,
Right. Well, I think my advice to you is that's your nature. You have to keep going and live life. I thought about trying to evangelize my agnosticism, but what's the point? Really, I don't have any of the answers. So,
right.
Yeah, just I would say keep going. Maybe you'll find something that nobody else has. It definitely keeps the brain and mind and soul limber. The second question was advice for people that to get them to start thinking about this stuff more.
Yeah, some sort of encouragement.
We need like maybe we might need like a snazzy advertising campaign.
Because we think this stuff is interesting, but not everybody.
No, not everybody. I mean, I think most people don't think this is interesting. And in fact, the guiding principle of going to parties is whatever you do, don't bring up religion or politics.
Mm-hmm.
And there's good reason for that. Those are very, passionate things. But those
Because
are,
you might try to take Darwin away from.
yeah, don't take Darwin away from the agnostics. We're taking it back.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to have to like form a coalition or something. I didn't know I was going to have to do that. But yeah, I don't know if I really have any advice because, like I've made plain, I don't have any answers. But I would recommend, an advertising campaign, something snazzy, something that pops, that they want to go find out what is that,
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be there for 15 seconds and then they'll keep scrolling.
So we can't.
We can try.
That's true. That's true. When you were giving your advice for the people that are interested in this stuff, you were like, "Well, I don't know if I can. I've made it clear that I don't have the answer." So that what you could do is you could say, "Join me if you want to be part of a group of dudes that don't know."
I mean,
if you
that's
want,
so comforting. Yeah, I don't know.
If you want to not know, but with other people, then come on over.
It's not like we might not stay in this state. We might get some new information. New stuff may come to light.
That's right. So we can all not know together.
We can all wonder. Yeah.
Right. All right, Hayes. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for doing this. Yeah, I think this was fun because we got to wrestle with it in real time. So that was cool. All right. So you have a good night.
Good night.
All right, my guys and my girls. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with my friend Ryan Hayes, the agnostic. We went over what agnosticism is and the difference between atheism and theist, and even a religious theist, and what would convince him as an agnostic one way or the other. I hope you found this interesting. If you did, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all of the episodes that I release. And